When it comes to writing or speaking, there is always a need to use multiple words instead of single words, especially when we intend to describe concepts, actions, or events in more detail. We use phrases or clauses to achieve this, but many tend to face difficulties when it comes to distinguishing between them. This brings us to the study of the difference between phrases and clauses in English. What are phrases? Phrases are grammatical structures that express a unit of meaning. While they do not make complete sense on their own, they still express tangible meaning in isolation. Take for instance, the big cat is at home. Let us take the phrase, the big cat, but before we analyze it, how can we tell that it is a phrase from the sentence? We can tell that it is a phrase because in their sentence, it expresses a single meaning, it gives us information about a particular cat, and it does not contain a finite verb. Because the phrase introduces a type of cat to us, which is a noun, we can call it a noun phrase. Another way we can tell that it is a noun phrase is by substituting the whole phrase for a noun. Take for instance, cat is at home. The sentence is still meaningful and grammatical even as the phrase was replaced by a single noun, so it is a noun phrase. This is because the fact that it can be replaced by a noun at the same position means that it functions as a noun acting as the subject of the sentence, and nouns can only replace words or groups of words that perform the same functions as them in structures. The phrase, the big cat, is at the subject position of the sentence, the big cat is at home, acting as the subject of the sentence, which makes it a noun phrase. Analyzing the phrase, we can tell that on its own, the big cat expresses a tangible meaning. If you walk up to someone and say, the big cat, while the person will be waiting for you to give more information about it, they know that what you just said is meaningful, but their information is not complete. You just described an animal but without further information about what that has to do with anything. The phrase, is, indicates a state of being, hence it is a verb phrase. We know this because, is a verb, and when we have one or more words acting as a verb, we refer to them as a verb phrase. Since is a finite verb, doesn't that counter the claim that phrases do not contain finite verbs? Verb phrases are the only phrases with an exception to the rule, and this is because they are only made of verbs and so can contain finite verbs. However, just like noun phrases, verb phrase contain a unit of meaning that is not complete on its own until further information is provided. The phrase, at home, indicates a position or a location, and it is introduced by a preposition, followed by a noun phrase, hence it is a prepositional phrase. We can tell it is a prepositional phrase because of its structure, a preposition and a noun phrase, as well as its function, indicating a location or position. You would also notice that the phrase does not contain a finite verb, and it expresses a unit of meaning in isolation that is not complete until it is further elaborated on. Saying, at home, to someone will make them ask, who or what is at home. This is because what you said is meaningful, but the meaning is not complete until you provide more information like, the big fat cat is at home. What are clauses? Clauses are grammatical structures that are directly above phrases on the grammatical rank scale. What this means is that they are directly superior to phrases. Clauses are structures containing finite verbs which may or may not express a complete thought. A glance at this definition will make you think it seems self-contradicting, but when you observe the types of clauses you will understand why. There are two types of clauses: independent clause and dependent clause. Independent clauses are clauses that contain finite verbs, and can express complete meanings or thoughts on their own. They are the direct equivalents of simple sentences. In fact, every independent clause is a sentence, but not every sentence is an independent clause. This is because some sentences are made up of multiple clauses, like a complex sentence is made up of at least one dependent clause, and one independent clause. An example of an independent clause is, the book is on the floor. The example above is both an independent clause and a sentence. you can see that it contains a subject, a finite verb and other grammatical elements. The meaning it expresses is clear and complete, which makes us know that it is an independent clause. A dependent clause, however, is a clause that, even though it contains a finite verb, does not express a complete meaning. Now, the main reason why dependent clauses do not express complete meanings is because they are introduced by subordinators. Subordinators are words that introduce dependent clauses, also known as subordinate clause. Subordinators are relative pronouns, who, whose, whom, what, which, etc., and relative adverbs, when, where, why, etc. Take for instance, what you said is true. Their example above is an independent clause, but within it is a dependent clause at the subject position, which is, what you said. We can identify this as a dependent clause because it contains a finite verb, said, and is introduced by a relative pronoun, what. Finite verbs are verbs that indicate tense and number. In the example above, the verb said indicates past tense, so it is a finite verb. When we observe the function of the dependent clause, we can tell it is a noun clause because it appears at the subject position of the sentence, hence functioning as a noun. On its own, it does not express a complete thought. What you said does not give us a complete information, because saying that to someone will make them ask, what did I say? Or what about / what happened to what I said? It is only when we place it in a full sentence or independent clause that it expresses a complete sense. Other types of dependent clauses are adjective clauses and adverb clauses. Difference between phrases and clauses. Phrases do not contain finite verbs with an exception to verb phrases. All clauses contain finite verbs. Phrase are single units of meaning that do not express complete thoughts. Clauses are structures that may or may not express complete thoughts. Phrases are higher than words on the rank scale. Clauses are higher than phrases on the rank scale. Phrases are made up of words. Clauses are made up of phrases. There are 5 types of phrases in English. There are 2 types of clauses in English, independent clause and dependent clause. So phrases and clauses are different grammatical structures in English beyond single words. Phrases are groups of words expressing a single meaning that is incomplete in isolation, while clauses are structures containing finite verbs and can express a complete thought or not, depending on the type of clause. Independent clauses express complete thoughts, dependent clauses do not. Understanding the difference between phrases and clauses will better inform you on how to use them effectively in writing. See you soon.